Stop internalizing stuff. Stop overthinking. All right, we back at it. Segment 2. We were talking about being vulnerable with ourselves. Um, so give me a let me know your
Ooh.
self vulnerability
Last time I
story.
was vulnerable was probably like a week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember.
And like a week or 2 weeks ago. And I was talking to Charles and I was talking to Goon on the phone. And I was about to take a shower. Um,
This is when you put us on the sink and you told us
yes,
hang
and I
on
had
I need
my
to take a shower.
Yes, and I had my headphones on. And so I had put them on mute and I was just sitting there talking and I said, "Hey guy, I need to be vulnerable right now. I'm about to talk to you." And I'm just talking about everything that I was feeling because healing is ugly and it has allowed me to be vulnerable. It has me allowed to accept this new body that I'm in. And just all the different like changes and stuff because I'm a very active present mom when it comes to
You
Mason.
are.
And due to me being down, I wasn't as active and I wasn't as present. And
Right.
that made me feel some type of way. And then just like I was just thinking about everything, like businesses and stuff. Like I have these two beautiful business ideas. And it's just like I really want to start monetizing myself and put myself out there. However, that I have to believe in myself because if I don't believe in myself, then who's gonna believe in me? So like this is just me being completely vulnerable the whole time I'm in the shower, like everything. And then I was sitting there discussing like my marriage. So like after having Mason, the attention went to like Mason and not me and Todd. So now we're setting up these connection days so we can connect more because like
That's
after
beautiful.
having a kid, it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was discussing about like my job right now. Right now I work part-time as a moderator. I was talking about that. And I was just talking about how would my family be closer. So that at this point in time is when I unmuted them and I said, "Hey, I'm talking to myself right now. I don't think I'm crazy." And I just let everything I'm telling you right now, this is everything that I was saying. I was saying I want
Yeah,
my
because we
family to
were
be.
like just sitting there like,
Y'all was
hello.
quiet. They didn't say nothing. They was like quiet the whole time. And I'm just saying how I want my family to be closer. I want us to be like have family trips and stuff, and how I want my friends to be close. I was literally just releasing everything that I felt, everything that I was going through. I was literally releasing it, and I started crying, and I was crying. And at the end,
Right.
after I finished my cry, I said, "Okay, I'm better." But it just felt so good, want to be vulnerable with myself and let it out, to just release everything that I was feeling. And it felt just
Right.
so good just to be vulnerable. And I think that everyone should have those moments of being vulnerable.
Definitely have to have those moments of being vulnerable because if you don't, then you're gonna just keep it all in and you're gonna cry about it in a spot where you don't want to, and you got to take the initiative to like, look, I need to get something off my chest and
Mm-hmm.
I need to be vulnerable with myself right now. And doing it in the shower was when you needed to do it. So I commend you for doing that. And in being able to because even having to be vulnerable and recognize like, look, me and Todd need to take a what do you got connection days or whatever
Day.
because
Mm-hmm.
you and Todd became parents and sometimes you forget about that. And it's like being vulnerable and being able to connect with your partner like that is amazing. And even in my relationship, I'm able to connect with Alex in a way like that. Like we can talk to each other and it's great. Like sometimes, well, not sometimes now, but back in my past, like I felt like I couldn't talk to my partner. I couldn't be vulnerable with him or whoever he was. But
Mm-hmm.
now I'm able to if I have to, and not saying that we have to all the time, but I know if I have to, I can because we have discussed that and we have like, look, I want this to be a transparent relationship in the
Mm-hmm.
very beginning. That's what we talked about. Like this has to be transparency. This has to be open communication, being able to be vulnerable with each other, and that's what is the beauty of being able to be vulnerable and being able to be vulnerable with yourself and your partner because you have to be able to have that outlet and trust them. And I trust him wholeheartedly. And that means that you
Mm-hmm.
trust Todd and Todd trusts you wholeheartedly because we both know, like, look, I need to talk to you about something. We need to schedule something. We need to do something about this
Yes.
because we do love each other and we do have each other's back in that aspect. So that's beautiful. And I love having a great vulnerable relationship.
Yes, and it's nice to have like a tip weekly check-ins.
Mhm.
I'm just checking on your spouse. I seen something on Instagram, and she said that she asks her husband, "How can I be a better spouse today?"
Mhm.
And I thought that was a really good question. Like, could just like let me know how I can be better.
That's great because you can what can I do to help you or make your day better? Like
Hmm.
because then they can come back and ask the same thing and we could just figure out what we need for the day. Like,
The fact that my life looks different now after my surgery,
mhm.
it, like healing is ugly. Like healing is ugly, and like you have to go through it to see something beautiful. But like
Right,
going when you're going through it, it's like tough. It's like
right.
really tough for real.
It is.
And I encourage people to be more vulnerable with themselves and do it often because like it felt so good just to release
And a
everything that I was holding
testament,
inside.
I think a testament to healing being hard. I saw this on one of my friends. She posted something about healing, and it said that I remember I told you and T this the other day. Y'all probably wasn't listening to me because y'all be paying attention to me sometimes.
He
Um,
lying.
I don't be paying attention to y'all too though. Sometimes I be watching TV. He said that nobody tells you about the hardest part about healing or therapy and healing. She said it's not the hardest part isn't admitting that you need therapy. The hardest part isn't going through the therapy. The hardest part is once you're healed and you've been through therapy or you're still healing, you have to then go out into the world with the people who haven't been through therapy or who haven't gotten that work done. And it's not a bad thing that you have to deal with those people, but at least now you have the tools to be
Right.
able to deal with those people and also be able to teach other people then because it's like once you get that training and that knowledge, then okay, now I can teach it to you or I can, be this way with you and you reciprocate that and then you learn from me and but
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, I think we all are on a journey where we're learning things from other people all the time and it's a beautiful thing to learn other things from other people um but that's a part of it is like a lot of people we all need that time to become vulnerable with ourselves like you did in the shower. Like my vulnerability with myself is journaling. Like the other day, I was telling you guys like I was journaling,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that that helps you with vulnerability as well because I've been journaling since 2020. Um, and it I just write like sometimes you got so much in your mind where you need to write it down, and it kind of like clears it out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what like how you were in the shower. You got to talk it out. I'll write it out and then sometimes I will reread it, and I'm like, "What the heck was I even talking about?"
Mm-hmm.
But then, also on the other note, once I get it out, I know how to have that conversation if I need to have a
Yes.
conversation with somebody because I'm like, "Look, I was frustrated about something, and now I'm not frustrated about it, so now I can talk to you about it." But or I can journal and just be, I ain't got to talk about it because I journaled and I wrote it down, and I realized like this isn't something that actually needs to be, it was something within myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a part of being vulnerable with yourself. It all comes full circle because, like me, I think of the worst case scenario all the time. And sometimes I will internalize that and I need to externalize it into my journal and figure it out. Like, look, okay, it's not that deep. Or what was you even like this? Stop. Stop internalizing stuff. Stop overthinking because I need your boy is on a break. I'm not in school right now. I'm not in, and I'm not working. I'm just literally on a break. And I got all this time on my hands, but sometimes for a Virgo, that is not too good because I overthink things. I overthink. I have a question for you about vulnerability.
Ooh,
And
okay.
since we're adults and you being a mother, and I'm going to be a dad one day, how do you how do you teach Mason to be vulnerable? How do you think you're going to instill that in him or show him how to be vulnerable and that it's okay to be vulnerable?
Ooh, that's actually a really good question. So what I do now, if he's having big feelings, I let him know like it's okay to have big feelings.
Mhm.
Um, and validate his feelings just so I can create, so me and my husband create that space so he can feel seen and he can
Right.
feel loved and he can feel valued and feel like I can go to my parents and I can let them know X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
But this parenting thing, there ain't no handbook. So hopefully I'll do this.
You're right. And there is no handbook. We all it's something new to everybody, so you gotta adapt. And I feel like that's what our parents did. They it wasn't no handbook. They just had to go with the flow. And I like that you said that you make him feel seen because
Mhm.
I believe that's also a root of the problem of vulnerability. Because sometimes we're vulnerable with someone and they don't see us, they don't hear us, they don't understand what we're talking about, or they refuse to see it.
Mhm.
And that's why like I feel so safe in my relationship because I feel seen when or heard when I'm talking to him or being vulnerable with him is because in my past trauma life, in my past life, I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel heard. I did not, even when I was a kid, I don't know my family's going to watch this. Sometimes I did not feel seen. Like I did not feel like what I was going through mattered or what my feelings were mattered because I was the kid, they were the adult, and it just what you'll be okay. And it
Yeah,
was
to
like
pick. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, and it was one of those feelings where it's just like you're gonna be okay. But no, like I feel something inside of me and I want to get it out, but it's like I'm gonna be okay.
Mhm.
But go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, to piggyback off of that, I had a conversation with my mom yesterday. I don't know if you was listening or you heard the conversation and stuff, but I had told her like, they did the best they could, raising
Exactly.
us and
They
stuff.
did.
They did the best that they could with the tools that they had.
They did.
However, my dad wasn't a feeling person.
Hmm.
He wasn't a feeling person, like, get up, like quit crying type of thing. Like he
Hmm.
wasn't in touch with his feelings. And my mom, she was in touch with her feelings, but to a certain
Extent.
extent.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And so like with my dad, like it was this picture perfect image. Like everyone thought like there's nothing that went on in our household or
Hmm.
nothing happened and stuff.
Right.
But there was stuff that was going on. And growing up, but there wasn't a conversation with my parents if like something happened where they ask you, hey, how are you feeling about this? Like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it
Yeah.
was it was nothing like that. So that's another reason why me and my husband create that space for Mason to feel seen and feel loved, because like,
Mhm.
yeah, I had it a little bit, like no dish to my parents or anything, but yeah, I had it a little bit,
Right.
but you know what I mean? I really didn't have it. You
It's
get what I'm
not what
saying?
we it's not what us as humans actually needed because they didn't know how to do it. And I tell my mom all the time because I love Tina more than I love life itself. And she would tell me sometimes like I just wish I could have been a better mother. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what? I think that my mom was I love all other mothers, but I think that Tina was the best mother in the
Mm-hmm.
world, hands down. Like, and I feel like every child probably thinks that. Some people don't. I'm sorry for those who don't. I really am. But for my mother, I think I had the best mama in the world. Even though sometimes she did tell me, "Do I got McDonald's money?" when I really did want a French fry and some nuggets. But I think that my mom was. She made me who I am today. I'm a very kind,
Mm-hmm.
loving, honest person. And I will never take that away and say my mom was a bad mother because she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is that could they have been a little bit more vulnerable with us and teach us vulnerability a little bit more? Yes. But they also didn't know much about that because
Yeah, you know what I
the people
mean?
before them that raised them didn't teach them that. But now we know more about it, so we teach it to our children and the younger generation growing up. Like it is just something that we have to do. And even with the like, I was talking to one of my friends the other day, Shaq, and because he has a kid, and we were talking about parenting, and I was just like, because he was going off about something, I forgot what it was, but he was blaming like some of the dads that aren't in the picture for how kids are growing up these days, and how they just have no structure. And I was just like, we can blame the dads not being in the picture, but we also need to blame blame the people who soft parent but don't get me wrong, who soft parent but soft parent to a point where it's like they let their kids do whatever they want. Like there's nothing instilled in these kids. Like you soft parent, but I say you medium soft parent because you still got that in your voice where you're like, hey, Mason, stop.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these people who soft parent, they're just like, stop it. You can't keep doing that. Oh my gosh, you can't do that. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you cannot do that because they need to know the authority behind it. But soft parenting is, I think it's amazing, but you still have to raise these kids to know authoritative part behind it. But
Mm-hmm.
teaching him to be vulnerable, I love that. That's to me, that's the soft parenting in the whole situation, is because you're teaching him something that we did not get. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't get the space or the feeling seen part. And that's what I call soft parenting. I call soft parenting that because it's just like you're being vulnerable with your child. You're
Mm-hmm.
letting your child know, like, okay, your emotions are valid. Like your emotions, you can have this, but you're doing a little bit too much. So I need you to
Mm-hmm.
throttle it back some. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. To piggyback off of that, if I'm wrong, I tell Mason I'm sorry. I,
So,
I
okay.
tell
And
I,
see,
I
that's
tell
great.
I tell him I'm sorry. Like if I raise my voice at him, I tell him I'm sorry. Mommy should never raise her voice at you. Mommy should
Mm-hmm.
have handled the situation
That's so
better.
that's so beautiful.
I do that because again, younger, did I have that? You know what I mean? Like, no. But that goes into back then, like I feel like now it's becoming more known of people like getting therapy and stuff like that, whatever. But I feel like back then, it was that stigma of like you can't be seen weak. So again,
Right.
that goes to like why we have this perfect image that oh, their family is perfect and
It's like everybody on the outside looking in don't need to see y'all's problems. Like because
true.
they don't. Like it's not the world's business. But that's also goes to show like, sometimes I believe that a lot of marriages or relationships don't work out because somebody wasn't willing to be vulnerable. And I think
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability is so big. And um in the area of just having a solid relationship is vulnerability, communication, compassion, and that's like one of the key factors. You just got to be able to be vulnerable with your partner and with yourself because
Mm-hmm.
if you cannot be vulnerable, your partner is going to be like left out because they don't know what you got going on inside because you're not being transparent with them. You're not being
Right.
compassionate with yourself or them. So, and you have to be, it goes all into saying about trust too.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't trust your partner, then you're not going to be vulnerable with your partner. That's why the base of it is trust, is because trust and vulnerability go hand in hand because you got to be able to trust your partner to see you and to hear you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I trust Alex to hear me and see me, and we have a conversation about it. And that's my closing argument.
It's interesting that you bring up this point, and I say that because I literally was talking to my cousin Shayna this week. It was this week, and she was
Mm-hmm.
telling me there's this girl that she worked with. I graduated college with her at Ohio State. So, hey, girl. But anyways,
Hey, girl.
she had told my cousin, Bree always looks like she's so happy. And if anything was to happen to Bree, I'll be really shocked because she always is so happy. And so then my cousin was sitting there talking and stuff, whatever, and she was just like, how about you create, vulnerable spaces and stuff, like, to encourage more vulnerable spaces and stuff. But it was just interesting because it's just like then digs into like you like
And yeah, I attempted suicide.
attempted suicide
Mhm.
and you weren't vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. A
so
lot of people
yeah.
didn't even know like that I was in that state of mind because like your cousin
Yes.
said you just seem so happy, but it's like I wasn't being vulnerable with myself and I wasn't being honest. I wasn't even being honest with myself. Like I'm so glad that I'm still here. Let's just put that
Mm-hmm.
out there. Like so glad that I'm still here, but the people who look the happiest always look so happy. We got a lot going on in this head.
Mm-hmm.
Trust
Better
me.
check on your strong friends. I'm not playing with y'all.
And
Check up on
because
your strong friends.
people always say you need to check on your strong friends, and people don't understand why because your strong friends is always checking on you, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So who checking on us?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's you know, I'm always asking people around me, and actually T is the person who I get this from, is because she always asking me or even Breon. She's like, "Are you okay?" She just check, just be like, "You
Mm-hmm.
okay?" And sometimes I'm sitting in the car with Alex. I'm like, "You all right?" Because I'm checking in, like, "You good?" If I'm with my one of my friends, I'm like, "You okay?" Or Netta, I'm like, "Everything okay?" They be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yeah, fine." And I'm just like, "Oh, I checking. You got something on your mind? You can talk to me." Because we don't need to fight these battles alone. Like we really don't. And this has become a mental health conversation, but it's like you need to be able to know that you can be vulnerable with certain people, especially your strong friends. Your strong friends, you can be vulnerable with them. Like
Mm-hmm.
me, I I encourage to have that space where I want you to know I'm gonna see you and I'm gonna hear you. And if something is bothering you, I'm gonna just be like, okay, you know what? This is a time when this is a defenseless conversation. I don't need to get defensive. I don't need to be ready to react. I need to listen to
Mm-hmm.
and I don't need to listen to respond. I can just listen. If you need me to respond, I can respond. Vulnerability is key. Journaling it. I think I want my our viewers to know. Get in, get into it.
My question, what are ways or how do you overcome being afraid of being vulnerable?
Ooh, that's a deep one. How did I become? How did I? How do I or how did I?
How do you overcome being afraid of being vulnerable?
How do you overcome being afraid of being vulnerable? It starts with yourself.
Yes.
The bottom line, it starts with being vulnerable with yourself. You have to be able to be vulnerable with yourself before you can even be vulnerable with anybody else. Because if you can't tell yourself, like, look, I'm being transparent with yourself, you tripping right now, or you feel this type of way, and this made you feel some type of way, and it needs to be out, and you need to be able to tell yourself that and believe yourself when you say that because it's something that made you feel some type of way. So
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the way you begin and you start to become vulnerable, and then you you have the conversation with the person. You open it up with like this. I don't want you to be defensive. This is a defenseless conversation. I just really want you to hear me out. Like I
Mm-hmm.
this and that's on my heart, and I feel like I can speak freely with you, and being able to speak freely with you means I can be vulnerable with you, and then
Mm-hmm.
just that's how you become vulnerable. And but the first step though is within yourself, because not everybody has a partner where they need to be vulnerable with that person, but they need to be vulnerable with one of their friends or maybe one of their family members. And it starts within yourself. You actually kind of got to talk it out with yourself before you talk to somebody else, because if you talk to the person that you need to talk to about it first, then you kind of won't have the right words or the correct words, and then you feel shameful because you're like, okay, I said this the wrong way. You
Mm-hmm.
actually want to like get it out right the first time, so you don't feel shameful of how you approach the situation or the conversation. I think it just starts with yourself and getting it. Even journaling, I'm gonna say it again and beat that to death. Even journaling before being vulnerable with someone,
Mm-hmm.
being vulnerable with your journal first is an easy way to start. Being vulnerable in the shower by yourself is an easy way to start because you kind of learn to out instead of keeping it all in, because I believe that's what vulnerability, not being vulnerable, is like you're just holding everything in
Mm-hmm.
and not even trusting yourself with what you have inside of you, and you just gotta let that shit out.
But I do agree, it do start with you, and then you have to find the people that make you feel safe, that nurture you, that nourish
Yeah,
you,
there you
that make
go.
you feel seen, that value you, that hear you. You have to find those people, because if you are being vulnerable with people that's not like that, then you're going to be more guarded. You're going to just like, okay, well, then I'm just not about to be vulnerable no more because this person, you know what I mean, is acting
Right,
this. So you really have to find the people that accept you for you and make you feel seen.
right, and that's key. Because if you're not around people who make you feel seen or make you feel heard, you're always going to have that fear because then they validate your feeling of being scared of being vulnerable because they're like, because then you're sitting there like, see, this is why they want to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
But there's people out there like you and myself where if you are my friend and I made you feel some type of way, you should know that you can come to me and tell me like, I ain't like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm hear you. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Right.
Like, because I really didn't mean to make you feel some type of way. Like, I never have ill intention where I want to make somebody feel some type of way. I don't, because I want people to love being around me. I want you to feel my spirit because I feel like I have good energy, and I like to stay around good energy,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to be comfortable when you're around me, and I want to be, now that I'm comfortable within myself and with who I am. I believe that I can embody all the good energy, the kindness. So it's okay for you to be my friend. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
for Alex to be my boyfriend because it's like I'm safe. I'm a safe place,
Yes.
and that's okay. You know,
This was a good conversation.
it, was- it got deep. It ran off a different, a few different tangents, but that's what vulnerability is. It's like it's not just one little topic. It's big. It's bigger than
Mm-hmm.
what most people think. If you can't be vulnerable with yourself or other people, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
It's so much, but a good conversation nonetheless. This is gonna probably end our segment for the day.
Thank you again. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Let's Get Comfortable with the Uncomfortable Conversations, where we encourage more vulnerable spaces. Peace.
You are seen and you are loved.
Yeah, sure.